Most people earn money by exchanging their time for labor. However, some people make money through the assets they already have. For most of those people who exchange their time to earn money, whether they work for 5 years or 10 years, the quality of their lives does not improve significantly. Yet, we often hear stories about the competition for AI talent, with companies offering compensation packages worth tens of millions of dollars to recruit top AI researchers, and even reports of $100 million worth compensation packages being offered. Was it like this in the past as well? There was certainly wealth inequality back then too. Even if peasants worked hard their entire lives, the fruits of their labor were taken away under the name of obligations, such as rent, corvée, and the tithes. Then what exactly were they paying for? Was it for protection, so the land they worked on could belong to them? Was it because they were allowed to use the natural resources? Who did those resources originally belong to anyway? Was it to receive protection from the Lord for their labor and the land they worked on during the wartime? Weren't the peasants themselves the ones who had to pick up their plows and go fight if war broke out? So many questions arise. Then what are taxes for? Or rather, what have they always been for? Are we simply paying them naturally because we have always paid them? As movement between classes become more possible than before, although not completely free, did wealth inequality disappear? Or was that not the cause of the wealth inequality in the first place? Why has it become difficult for some individual to accumulate wealth through labor, while the labor of some individuals receives overwhelming compensation? Is a reason for wealth inequality simply that those who receive overwhelming compensation do not give enough back to society? There are so many questions I want to know the answers to, but today I want to find the answer to where wealth inequality comes from and whether wealth inequality has become severe because social contributions are not sufficient. First, this book created questions that I had not been aware of before and gave me many insights. The meritocracy trap. The question is how the inheritance of wealth had changed as the time had passed. In the past, wealth inheritance was passed down through class, from a lord to the lord's child. Therefore, many people worked under the family of a lord, and an economic system was built around that. The same applied during the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century. When there was a factory, people earned money by working at that factory, and businesses grew around it, creating an economic system. However, in modern times, education has become one of the major pillars through which wealth is passed down. Instead of passing down land or castles, parents invest similarly large amount of money into their children's education. That investment is then recovered when their children use their own abilities to earn money. This also creates a gap between classes because the cost of providing such education can be at a level that ordinary people cannot afford. These children then grow up and take positions such as CEOs, becoming the leading group of the society. Of course, receiving a good education and becoming important talent in society is a positive thing. However, because a lord was lazy and incompetent then, many people around the lord had roles to perform and allowing them to build livelihoods and eventually become a strong foundation of society. But nowadays, as technology and capital have combined, a structure has been created where compensations become concentrated among these educated elites. The problem is that this creates income inequalities where it takes away the income of the majority of the workers. Therefore, if in the past the wealth gap between the middle class and the poor was large, now the middle class and the poor have become almost similar in their living standards due to many social protection systems, while the gap between the upper class and everyone else has become enormous. As a result, the middle class begins to feel frustration and emptiness because they are now living at a similar level to the poor whom once they felt different from, while also feeling that their positions are moving further and further away from the upper class despite working hard. Then, should elites keep some of their income that they earned by using themselves as resources through intense education and hard work and return the rest to the society? We admire people who do this, but in reality, it is the individual choice of each elite, and we cannot strongly criticize them simply because they do not give back. After all, we are living in a capitalist society. Also, I think relying only on elites to solve wealth inequality by returning their income is a very passive solution. If this were enforced by law, the belief in capitalism could weaken and the creativity and development could be hindered. However, at this point, another question arises. Do we really want further development as humanity? Of course, there are fields that benefit from AI, but most people are worried that their jobs may be replaced, or they are afraid of future changes that cannot even be imagined. And yet, those in the AI field are busy competing to develop better AI. Is this a war between those elites who, let alone social contribution, have no concern for the lives of most people, and have no interest in their responsibilities as social leaders?